So, Five Nights at Freddy's. I totally mixed it up. Anyways, the movie just came out. And I watched it, and I had a lot of fun. But there seems to be some critiques. And I do agree with some of them. I don't agree with a lot of them. And I just want to talk about my take on just the movie in general. And what it means, what's it all about, what I would have done differently, what I liked, what I didn't like, how dumb Doug Walker is. Oh yes, he ties into here. Doug Walker mention. So yeah, let's start off with the summary. So in the FNAF movie, we follow Mike Schmidt, a kinda sweaty looking guy who is having difficulty holding down a job. He has to provide for his younger sister, in which he is struggling with custody with his Aunt Jane, who wants her for the money and doesn't actually have her well-being in mind. Then, to stop her from getting custody and having a good case against him, he gets a job from his career counselor, Steve Raglan. It's probably important, definitely not William Afton. And he gets a job as a security guard at the shutdown Freddy's Pizzeria. And as he works there, hijinks ensue. Animatronics do funny little stuff like kill several men. The cupcake goes crazy and kills a guy, and then it's just like a rabid dog. I love that cupcake. It's so stupid. Vanessa shows up and is kind of suspicious. What's going on there? Something's happening. Why is Vanessa from Security Breach here? Are we going to see Vanny? We did not see Vanny. More hijinks ensue. We have a girl and her dog moment with all the animatronics. Then they have to fight off the animatronics. William Afton gets spring locked. Oh yeah, check it out. Steve Raglan is William Afton. We totally didn't know that. And he gets spring locked, and then they all have a happy ending, even though there's several bodies and missing people, and Vanessa's in a coma after getting stabbed. Happy ending. So yeah, that's the summary. And if that sounds vastly oversimplified, yes, of course. Why would I put any effort into the summary? If you're watching this, you probably watched the movie. And if you haven't, that's on you, man. Definitely watch the movie. Preferably don't pirate it. I think it's really good, and I think more people should go and support that. I understand if you have some issues with like Scott Cawthon. But there's a lot of people that were working on that movie. It is really a passion project. You can tell the love that they put into it. So I heavily recommend seeing it in theaters or streaming off Peacock. Because, the more support that we give it, I mean, it's doing really well already, but the more support we give it, the more likely that we are going to have good quality sequels. Because there's 2 more in the making right now. Potentially more. I hope we keep it at a trilogy, though. I think it's probably what's going to happen. But yeah, that's the summary. And next, we have a response to the critics. This is where I get to talk about Doug Walker. Not that much. I feel like I'm overhyping him, but it still blew my mind when I saw it. The criticisms that overwhelmingly kind of started happening very quickly. A lot of people were looking at it, because it has 27, 28 on Rotten Tomatoes by the critics. It was not looking good. But as I was reading through the actual what the critiques were from these famous critics, and I think there's one guy that was in the New York Times that was talking about it, and I gave it a splat. And I was reading through it, and I kind of just felt myself over and over saying, you're missing the point. This doesn't make sense. That's a stupid criticism. And I think a lot of people at this point have stopped caring about Rotten Tomatoes, specifically on the critics' end. I mean, common point is, they gave Cuties an 80%. And, it's not that great at all. Even as I was looking at it, I was like, how did the Mario movie get a better rating from these critics than the Five Nights at Freddy's movie? I watched the Mario movie, It was garbage. It was hot garbage. It is for kids, yes, but also you're able of delivering a quality product that isn't garbage, and that was what the Mario movie is. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion. I feel like it's pretty like across the board hot garbage. It looks pretty. I'm getting distracted. I do not like that movie. I'm sorry. But yeah, so a very common one was about how scary it was and more of the lack of that. And I'm gonna finally put up the thing that I've been talking about for most of this, which is the Doug Walker criticism. I saw this, and that's what inspired me to make this. I've never made a face-to-face video before, and it's just gonna be low quality because it's my first time off of a phone and like $5 headbuds. But look at this. What a wonderful, very well-meaning criticism that is totally helpful and not really fucking stupid. That is such a he really understands what real movies are, Doug Walker. He knows exactly how to critique these movies and have the right points. And it feels like I'm kind of goofing on him. I am. He's just kind of dumb. He's like the internet's like laughing stock at this point. I don't know, but it was very much kind of like not just him that was having these opinions. I mean, he said it the stupidest way possible. But there's a lot of these critics that are like, it's not scary enough. It would be better if it was rated R. It's too goofy. It's like all these different things. And I would like to remind everyone, this is a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. You know, it's not gonna be The Shining. I don't know why people are expecting that. There are like some criticisms that I will say are more valid than the others, and I'll get to that in my critique portion of this. But the idea that, well, it should have been rated R, it should have been more gory, it should have been more scary, I think it's really dumb. And I've noticed that some fans as well, and some people I know in real life, have kind of repeated the little soundbite of, this would have been so great if it was like a rated R movie instead of a PG-13 one. I honestly, this might be a hot take, I don't agree. I think it's good where it's at. I don't think it should have been more gory, because a lot of people seem to have slowly become more and more inclined to believe that Five Nights at Freddy's has always been so scary and like so fucked up and like this is intense. And it's like, haven't you guys played the games within the last, I don't know, since you were 11? Any of you guys? Because I've been replaying quite a few of the early games, and they're not that scary. Even the newer ones, and this is another criticism, like, the new ones aren't that scary. It's true, but they're not losing the scary quality, except for, like, Security Breach lost the ambience. They brought it back with Ruin, but, like, I will admit, Security Breach was kind of like an amalgamation of they kind of leaned a little bit too far into that, and I'm not going to be defending that. I mean, I like the game, but if you want a defense of that, go check out Pastra. They're way cooler than me. But like it is kind of fascinating to see this collective misunderstanding of what the games inherently are. They've never been gory. They've never been scary. They've been spooky, yes, and I think the movie gets a good few spooky bits. It's never, I mean, some people point at, like, well, the lore, you know, kids were getting killed and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that happens in the movie, too. And it happens in Security Breach, too. I'm going to stop talking to Security Breach. This is an entirely separate thing. But it happens in the movie, too. It's actually a bit, like, the movie is scarier than most of the games. All of the games. Because they do have people dying on screen. They do have the animatronics actually moving about and attacking people, and it has some like good spooky creepy bits. Like another bit is like, oh well, you know, when he got like spring locked, it's not as like gory as it should have been. You know, it was so PG-13. You know, the scene that you're comparing this to is an 8-bit mini game where he's like little red pixels are flying off of him. How is that scary or gory or whatnot? That was it. It's so not. And alternatively, would it have actually been cool looking, as you think it would have been, if as William Afton was getting spring locked, like 80s style horror movie, bright red blood was gushing out of him like a fountain? It wouldn't have. I don't know why people are going after that one scene particularly. I think that they could have gotten the sound design to be a bit more intense, definitely, but it wasn't a bad scene. And then, like, I don't want to blame VHS tapes, because I love the VHS tapes. I watched so many different people's, like, interpretations and different people's iterations of, like, VHS tapes and analog horror based on Five Nights at Freddy's. They're great, but they're not canon. They never have been. I don't think they ever will be. That sort of intensity and that, like, in some points, like, goriness, it's cool, but it's retroactively been put on by the fans, and it shouldn't be seen as what Five Nights at Freddy's originally was. Because I see some of these videos, and it's just a separate thing, but it's still kind of connected, of like these videos being like, oh, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's when I was a kid, and it's like they'll put up the analog horror tapes and whatnot, and being like, isn't this so spooky? And it's like Five Nights at Freddy's now, and just like security breach or whatever. Gonna stop talking about it, but like it drives me nuts, because that was not the game. And you could talk about, like, even if you're like, oh well, how the fans treat it, that's actually the opposite. When I was a kid and into Five Nights at Freddy's, you want to know what was super popular? Vincent. He loved Toast. Or like sexy drawings of Chica, or Kajinkas of all the animatronics as people, and they're doing little hijinks. I don't think there was ever really a point in the beginning bit where there was like real genuine horror series or content being made for Five Nights at Freddy's. A lot of it was very goofy and silly, and because we were all kids that were fans of it. I don't know why people are losing their minds over the fact that kids now are liking Five Nights at Freddy's, because you're a hypocrite. It's just been a couple years, and so we're all grown up now, and now we're upset about, like, oh well, new fans are kids. You're a hypocrite, that's what. But yeah, like, they've never been that scary, so I'm not really... I think it's a dumb criticism to make about, like, oh well, the movie isn't scary, it should be rated R. That's not the point, it never has been. One of the criticisms is that it's too goofy, it's too cheesy. I want to repeat once again, my brother in Christ, it is a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Have any of you guys played Five Nights at Freddy's within the last 5 years? Any of them? Have you ever played any of them? Or did you just watch it when Markiplier did the playthroughs and go, oh, it's so scary as a kid, and then forget about it and build up your own idea of what Five Nights at Freddy's is? Because it's super goofy. It is so silly during so many points. And it's kind of silly of everyone else trying to pretend it wasn't. Like, did we forget about FNAF World? Just that whole FNAF World. I feel like I should just stop there. Exotic Butters, half of Phone Guys calls. Phone Dude. Like, Pizzeria Simulator. I know half of you guys broke Helpy's back at that ball pit, you know. That sounds... If you're not a FNAF fan, or never played Pizza Simulator, or watched Pizza Simulator, it's gonna sound so awful. I know you all broke Helpy's back at the ball pit. That sounds awful. But it's never been this super serious, spine-chilling series. It's been a goofy, kind of wacky, scary at times, you know, creepy series, but, you know, the fact of it having goofy bits and silly bits, I don't think pulled away from the actual product. It's very true to the series as a whole, and if you don't like that, then stick to the VHS tapes. Sorry. I feel like I'm making it seem like I hate the VHS tapes. I want to reiterate, I love them. They're great. They're not the series. They are fan projects that are made out of passion, but they're not what Freddy's is really all about. You know, it's a cool concept of taking the story further and making it more realer and grittier. But, you know, don't judge new stuff because live up to the hype of the VHS tapes. Because I guarantee half of the fans nowadays, if FNAF 1 came out, like now, would be like, this isn't like the VHS tapes. It's so not scary. They don't show any of the kids dying. It's, I don't want to say garbage opinions, but it's really easy to just not care about. Sorry, that's not a very helpful critique, you know. And then also, this one I will give a little bit more weight to, of the whole, like the whole point where middle of the film they just kind of stop being scary entirely, and it's like, oh, it's Abby and her animatronic friends. You know, they build a pillow fort, they do this, and that is a critique that I will give a little bit of weight to. It can pull you out. I appreciated the scenes. They had that bit of like silly quality to them, so it felt good to me. I liked it, and this is purely down to personal opinion. It does, I feel like it really kind of hits home of like, these are kids in the suits. Like, these aren't just mindless killing machines. They are hurt, scared children. And there could have been a way that they had directed the scenes or put focus on it to make that a little bit more obvious, and had that undertone of like, these kids are dead, these kids are scared, these kids are lonely during those scenes, because they did do that, but in like towards the end of when they're like, oh yeah, now they're gonna springtrap Abby, like that was kind of hit home of like, they're still dead, and they're lonely, and you know, it did bring back that sort of like horror and sadness just of what their situation is. I do kind of agree with that, the criticism a little bit, but not super much. I see a lot of the critics, and I mean that like the fancy ones, saying that it should have just been cut altogether. It didn't make any sense. I don't think it should have been cut. I think it should have been maybe rewritten a little bit, made it a little bit more, so that was a focus of like what you're thinking while you're watching it is, this is really sad. But it's not a horrible thing to me that it's not like the whole time you're watching it is like, this is really sad. You're just kind of like, we're having fun. You know, body fell over and he gave a thumbs up. That's funny. But I can see how it would, some people would not like that. And I'm not going to go crazy on that, but it is something that I personally disagree with a little bit. I agree with it a little bit. You know, but yeah. So that's my main issues with the criticisms from the critics. That I fully just kind of not a fan of. And so next section, my critiques and like what I would actually criticize for. And some of it will be stuff that the critics have also talked about, but there's stuff that, I'm just gonna be honest, there's stuff that I do agree with, and are not really stupid criticisms. Sorry. With my criticisms, there isn't anything super crazy. It's mostly just nitpicks and things that I personally don't like. And there's one point where it is an actual like plot hole. It's the main one that kind of people talked about. But most of it's gonna be nitpicks leading up to it. So the first one, I'm starting with like, as soon as I like sat down to the movie and it started, that saw trap bear head thing. What is it? What is it? What's it for? What's its purpose? It looks like it's just made to shred the person's face. It doesn't, I don't know. It's weird. It's out of place. You know, and I feel like this is maybe where people thought it was going to be a lot gorier, a lot scarier, is because that is the opening scene of this very intense, like, scene, and he gets put into the saw trap thing. And especially if you're, like, a new fan to the series, or just, like, someone who's never seen the series and is just watching this movie, you'd expect that is, like, setting the tone for the rest of the movie, and I will give that. And I feel like that is a problem with the movie, is that saw trap scene. If they changed it just a little bit, it could have worked a little bit more. I don't hate the scene, but it does add a lot of questions, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know. Like, even in the trailers, people were like, "What is this? What is this about? What is that thing? That machine? It doesn't even have a name. It's never explained. It's used twice." I don't think it's even seen in the background shots of, like, the other scenes of, like, when they're in the storage room and you see the huge fucking thing, and like, Mike goes up to him and is like, "Hey, what is that?" Never happens. And that is my one gripe with that, of just, like, it feels out of place. I do like the fact that it did have like little pupils, like in the inside of the mask that were kind of like dilating and such, like looking at the security guard and looking at Mike when he was in it, because it did feel a bit like maybe it was a reference to the short story Count the Ways. You know, and I did look at that and was like, maybe that's a reference. It is pretty cool. But overall, it just left me asking more questions, and it didn't answer any of them, and I don't think that the next movies are going to answer it. I do think that is a little bit of, they were just trying to make it seem scarier, maybe. Because there's never a point where any of the characters ever bring attention to it. I feel like you could you could cut the scenes with that little saw trap thing, like entirely, just remove them entirely, and there'd be very little like difference in the actual movie, or in the plot. Like just those 2 scenes, remove it, you got nothing. You could literally just stop it right when the security guard gets like knocked out, whenever. Just stop it right there. I feel like that would have been a little bit of a better, because then you're not like, what the fuck? Because like even in the theater when I was watching it, it was very loud, by the way. If you're not a fan of loud theaters, don't watch it in person. Watch it through Peacock. But there are multiple people being like, "Is that from Saw?" I heard one person like shouting like, "Do you want to play a game?" That was very funny. But like, I'm not the only person to say it looks like a saw trap, because it very, very much so does. That's a common thing of like, everyone's like, why is there a saw trap in here? And it also adds question of like, who made this? Was it William Afton? Why did he make it? Does he just throw this like old security guards in the? Why are the animatronics putting him in there? Like, wouldn't it make more sense if they just shoved him into an animatronic? And they do shove people in the animatronic casings. Like, they showed that. I don't know what that saw trap thing is for. That was my biggest gripe of like, what is this thing? But I'm gonna talk about it in my last section, which is gonna be what I would change, and I'm gonna explain more on like how I would try and keep the integrity similar, but maybe change it to just my own piece of heart. Then after that, I think there was the juking of the fans, if that makes any sense, of like the whole thing about like the theories of Mike Schmidt. Is he Mike Schmidt or is he Mike Afton? Like, what's going on? And I do think that the movie did play with that of, you know, maybe he is an Afton. Ooh. But I don't think it was handled very well. And I think it was focusing more on confusing the fans and like, you know, switching up and being a shocking twist that like he isn't an Afton after all. It's not the greatest way that it was handled, and I think like down to like Steve Raglan, you know, middle of saying his last name, stops, doesn't say his last name, and like looks at him and like changes his like attitudes entirely. Like that very much was like, huh, something's there. And it makes sense after he like it's all like laid out. But in the moment I was kind of thinking of like, well, since he's using like the last name Schmidt, maybe that was like someone that the Aftons knew. William looking at it being like, well, he doesn't look like any of them. You know, he's obviously like, do I recognize him? And looking further and like maybe being like, oh my god, that's my kid. I thought that while I was watching, I thought like that was what that scene was happening, and maybe that's me having overactive imagination or whatnot. But it felt like something was there. And then following that up with when he gets introduced to Vanessa, it like she introduces herself with first and last name, and he responds, Mike. I'm Mike. It did leave a bit of not confusion, but it definitely was sort of setting up like, hey, his last name's a little funky. Like, I think those are pretty much the only real time that his last names were like brought attention to, and they're both cases in which he's not using it, or the character like addressing him is not using it. It's like, even if I knew nothing about Five Nights at Freddy's, that would very much set me off as like, there's something about his last name. He might not be using his real last name. That's generally what like those type of scenes imply is that there's something off. And especially with the fact that Vanessa ends up being the one that is revealed as being the Afton, it's even more confusing, because if he really is just Schmidt and she's the one that's using a fake name, it would have made so much more sense if they had just reversed it a little bit, where he's like, yeah, I'm Mike Schmidt, and she's like, oh, well, I'm Vanessa, like, what was it, like Springer or something. I can't remember what her last name was. I think it was Vanessa Springers. If it was Springers, I might be making this up, but if it was Springers, that would be really funny. And like, yeah, after the Springlock animatronics, Springers. But anyways, I don't think that was it. Or it was like Smith or something. But like, having her maybe stumble over her last name and being like, ooh, something's there, because it was a lot of like kind of pushing that she was suspicious. Something was off about her. It would have been interesting if she had stumbled over her last name instead of Mike being the one that just didn't even give out her his. Because by the time that it ends, it's like, yeah, he's a Schmidt. There's nothing else to it. And I see some people theorizing that maybe he's going to be an Afton after all. I don't think so. The way it was set up, I do think that there is some... Because they're saying, well, his memory doesn't seem super trustworthy, and that was highlighted over and over, and so maybe he's like creating false memories or whatnot. I think that there would have been, the way that it was handled in the movie, if he was secretly an Afton, it would have been handled differently. Also, I don't want this to be a Luke and Leo situation, because I don't care what you say, there was like some sorta kind of like romantic tension or something being set up between the two. That was kind of hitting the radars of like, they're kind of being set up here. It's like, maybe like something's happening there. And if it's like revealed like, oh, he was an Afton the entire time, that would be mighty uncomfortable. Like I don't want that. Don't do that to me. I don't think that they're planning on doing that to us, because even if like as soon as like they do that reveal, if that's what they're going for, they go like, oh yeah, well, we're not gonna do like anything. Like there was a weird kind of romantic tension between the two, and I don't think I'm just imagining that. Just using basic like movie knowledge, that was kind of led into, and it would have been uncomfortable in afterwards to kind of think about like, that first movie did age poorly. Like I don't want that to happen, and I don't think that's what they're going for. I do have my theories on what they're going for, but yeah, I don't think he's going to be revealed as an Afton. I don't think that's what's happening. Not even as like a bastard child. I don't think that's going on. But I'm not going to decry people that have that as a theory. There is good reason for thinking that. I think what's happening is just much simpler. But anyways, yeah, that's my thing. I just don't think that the mystery behind his last name, and because even if you were not a fan and you watched the movie, you would be able to tell like that there is something kind of being led up to, and then it's just revealed of like, no, there's nothing there. There's nothing happening. And it takes up too much of not space, but like I did feel myself kind of thinking it over, of like trying to figure it out when I could have been thinking about other things and figuring other things out and enjoying the movie more. So yeah, then another one of my critiques is, this is a very small one. You know what I'm talking about, the Bite of 87 scene. It was very funny. It was very funny. I don't know if it was meant to be funny. It was very, I will say, the lead up to it, creepy. Like, her slowly getting closer and closer to the mouth of it, and like looking in. That was genuinely pretty creepy. And it was like one of the few times that the entire theater was like really silent, except for a few mutterings of like, oh no, don't do it, no, get away. Like, that was a scene where it was like really kind of like at its strongest. And then the hand comes out, and that was freaky, and she gets pulled in, and that's still freaky. And then it cuts and it cuts away to half of her body being brought in, and her bottom gets bitten, and like the bottom half of her legs, her like hip to legs, like the bottom half of her body just falls to the ground. And in some theaters, I didn't see it, but in some theaters they were playing a version where like there's a blood splatter, and apparently it was a very goofy kind of like green screen, and it was very obvious. And it was like that was the moment that like the tension was just it was odd, and it kind of sucks because that was such a strong scene of like tension, and literally like the people around me were also like a great indicator of like how I felt, of like, no, don't go, no, don't do that. It was kind of like people whispering and muttering, but overall we're very quiet in an otherwise very loud theater. And the hand comes out, and people are like, oh. And then she gets bit in half, and people are laughing and saying like, oh, the bite of 87. Like it immediately, you could tell when the tension was just like cut through and completely undermined, because it was just such a silly little bit for such an otherwise great scene. It's really just a shame. Like, if they could have done the same thing, but like the hand just pulls her in enough that her head gets, like, if she got beheaded by that thing, that would have been fucking terrifying. And you could have done this still the same, like, cutaway, so it's like the shadows showing her getting, like, bitten, right? So you don't lose the PG-13 thing. And having the body fall instead of her legs. I don't know. That would have been way more intense, I believe. And still not going, like, super crazy gory. But, yeah, that's a nitpick. That explicitly is a nitpick. And that could literally just be fixed by just cutting off at the head instead of at the torso, because just her getting sucked in so far in to the point where it's not believable. How can her entire torso fit in there? That's not how physics works, baby. But yeah, that's explicitly a nitpick. Then another thing, and this is going to be two kind of things put into one: the aftermath. So after everything goes down, this is where it hits like slight plot hole. And some people this has been a pretty common kind of criticism that I wholeheartedly believe in. What happened to how Aunt Jane's in the living room? She's dead in the living room. What's going? How are they just having like a happily ever after? Wouldn't like the cops get called, or like the people will be like, Aunt Jane mysteriously went missing. I wonder where she went. Oh, hey, we should do an investigation on this. And oh, look, the last place that she had went was at the Mike's house, and maybe he had like gotten rid of the body, but they have ways of finding out if someone's there, like that you can find evidence that, hey, sorry, my thing cut off for some reason. But yeah, like, they could have found evidence that, like, maybe if she had blood left behind or hairs that, like, proved that she was there or she got injured, he would have, like, that's some intense stuff. And it doesn't help that also Vanessa is a police officer. She's, like, explicitly part of the police. And maybe you could make a thing of, like, since she was pretending to be, but she has a whole ass cop car. She was at the police station, like, bandaging, like, Mike up. I don't know. Like, that, if a guy who babysitter went missing, his Aunt Jane, who was fighting for custody with him, suddenly went missing, or her body was found in the living room, and he shows up with a cop that is stabbed and is in a coma, and just like, oh, don't worry about it. Actually, like, her dad, he killed, like, there's not really what's going on? How is that working? I feel like that is one point where I can very solidly say that is a plot hole, because they just end and they don't address any of that, and they just kind of cut to, like, they have their happy ending. Abby's completely fine now. She's not talking to thin air and her imaginary ghost friends. She's like such a normal kid now. Ignore the fact that she went through so many traumatizing things and almost got stuffed into an L doll, and her imaginary friends were actually ghosts, and her Aunt Jane is dead. She's not traumatized at all. She's a normal person. Like, it's very, I don't know. The ending did kind of pull me out a little bit. I'm just kind of like, I'm willing to accept it, but I feel like this could have been done better. But yeah, it was. I don't know. It was a very interesting kind of thing. And then I want to finish off on like one tiny little nitpick, and this has also been kind of thing. So I know I defended the Springlock scene when William Afton gets into it, because it really is a great scene. I feel like that is just like even down to him, trying to talk down to the animatronics, the kids, and calling them small and worthless and weak. I've seen some people try and criticize it for like, well, he's like so much smaller than him. What is he doing? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I think that's not very important. It really did bring a lot into like how he maybe had controlled them for so long, and like like his last-ditch attempt to get them to not attack him is by belittling them and making them feel, even if they aren't anymore, making them feel small and weak, and make himself feel much more powerful and menacing, and trying to scare them away. So I did really like that, but my small critique was with the line, I always come back. I feel like there could have been just a slight tweak to it. Maybe this should go in my what I would do section. I'll reiterate in my what I will do section. But I feel like there could have been a small tweak to make it seem a little bit less baffling of when he does that line, and he puts the animatronic head on, the Springtrap head on. Because that did feel a little bit of like, why is he doing this? It is a little bit of like, if you theorize for a little bit and think about on it a little bit, you can get a good understanding or a theory on why he was doing that. I think it would have worked or functioned a little bit better if they had made it just a slightly bit clearer, just one little tweak, and I'll get to that in the last section, what I would do. Next section is theories. What are my theories on what this means? And most of it's probably going to be made up, because what else is theorizing a Five Nights at Freddy's community than just making shit up and hoping to God something works? But yeah, see you in the next section. Okay, so my theories. So I fully believe, along with a lot of others, that Henry is Mike's dad. That the Schmidt family is analogous to the Emily family in the games. I feel like I can make a pretty strong case for it, but it is pretty well accepted right now that maybe that's what's going to happen. It is possible that he's just a Schmidt. That's just it. They're just Schmidts. But I hope that it is revealed that Henry is his father. And the reason I feel this way is I'm just going to talk about different points. So there is something being obvious of like they are tied to the Fazbear Diner, the Freddy's Fazbear Diner, because first of all, the fact that Abby is friends with the ghost children far before they actually are in the at all tied, like Mike gets the job at the diner as a security guard, like that could be seen as a plot hole of like, how is she friends with them already? They're in her house, as seen in when he's talking to her and he sits down on her bed and she says, "You're sitting on one of my friends." And at first it's like, maybe she's seeing things, maybe they're imaginary friends, but then it's revealed like, no, they actually are the ghosts. They are the children. So, that if they were just the Schmidts, it would be, I don't want to say a plot hole, but it would be an odd choice of like, why is she seeing these kids if she has no ties to them? But it would make sense if they were like, her dad was one of the co-owners or working on at the place, that maybe the kids recognize her, or I don't know, there is a tie there. Another thing is, in the dream sequences, there is a almost odd pointed lack of the father. I can't remember if he had any speaking lines. If he did, it was maybe one sentence. But like, the mom has more focus. Garrett obviously has the most focus. But even in the point where it was felt most pointed was in the scene where Cassidy, I'm just going to call him that, we don't have a name for him, but in which Cassidy is, bargaining for Abby by giving Mike this like pipe dream of like, well, you can see, your family all back together and the perfect way you want them. And in that scene, Garrett says, tries to convince him, his mom tries to convince him, you don't see his dad at all. Like, he has no speaking lines. There's not even a point where he like looks at Michael with like a face of like, stay with us. He's not there. I mean, he is there, but like he doesn't have any, like, he doesn't talk to him. There's no focus on him. And it felt odd of like, why is he not, like, this is certainly a choice. It seems there's something more to his dad, maybe. And that's also even more reiterated when he's talking about, his mom died. She's explicitly dead. But in response to that, if I remember right, he said something like, and my dad couldn't handle that, and now he's gone. And that would imply that maybe his dad killed himself. But the wording specifically, and in Five Nights at Freddy's, the wording can get very specific and mean very specific things. It's very convoluted. But the specific wording of now he's gone, or he's gone now. Not dead, not ran away, not killed himself. He's gone. So we don't really know what's up with him. And if we're going to take him as being Henry, this would make sense. Because like Henry later on in the games, sets up Pizzeria Simulator, and whatnot. So he's doing his own thing. It would make a lot of sense if he wasn't dead. He was, maybe trying to fight William in his own way, or just ran away to get from it all. And then also we get down to the kids. So the Schmidt kids and the Afton kid, or kids, depending on how you see it. So I'm going to start off with Vanessa and my second part of this theory that may or may not be true. There's a lot of people theorizing that maybe Cassidy, or the Golden Freddy spirit, is one of the Afton kids. He's Vanessa's sibling. And honestly, I don't mind that. I am willing to just say, I believe that. Because even down to just like superficial things, them both being blonde, such as, you know what, I'm taking it. Them both being blonde, even down to him being so focused on William, like even in the last scene, he's the one that's standing over him and like watching him. It would be really interesting if like the plot line for that was that, going off of the games or whatnot, maybe he's the got into an accident, Bite of 87, Bite of 83, sorry. And then after that, William started, killing off these kids or whatnot. I don't know. We're not sure what his motivations are within the movies. It hasn't been revealed yet. I'm sure we will get it. Don't call that a plot hole yet. Also, even, there's 2 more movies to go. But yeah, like, it would be interesting if that was, like, why he's, like, so ready to see William just, like, burn. Of, like, watching him kill these kids, maybe in Cassie's name, maybe not. We don't know. But it would be interesting. I'm very willing to believe that. And that would also kind of still line up with, if we're doing, like, a reversal, because that's what I think is happening, is the reversal of the children's roles between the 2 families. So, in the Silver Eye novels, Henry has 2 kids, Charlie and Sammy. That even hits down to one being a boy, one being a girl. And so Charlie dies and starts possessing an animatronic, the puppet, and Sammy is alive, but just taken away. And while this is kind of a weaker case on this one, because there's not a lot of information regarding Sammy and whatnot, but it would also kind of tie into the fact of one of them is dead and possessing an animatronic, and one of them is alive, and doing their own thing. I don't know, this is very weak, but it is possible if, like, them being a son and a daughter would kind of line up. And I'm just gonna stop it right there. Maybe this will be proven later, maybe it won't. It's just what I like to think. And then what I do have a stronger case for, and a lot of people do, is the reversed roles of the Schmidt kids. They seem so perfectly like analogous to the Afton kids. Of Abby, an Elizabeth role, she almost gets put into the Ella doll. Also, more Ella doll. It's more case to prove that maybe the Henry is their father, because Henry made the Ella doll for his daughter Charlie to he didn't make the Ella doll. Sorry, Charlie possessed the Ella doll, and he made animatronics for her to like put the doll into, so that she could like grow up as a normal girl. And so it's interesting that in this case, Abby is being put into the Ella doll instead of like a baby animatronic. So that is really interesting. But it still kind of like plays on the whole thing of Elizabeth being shoved into the animatronic via the claw, right? Into the inside casing that would hold kids. But instead, it's Abby, the potential youngest daughter of Henry, that's being forcibly put into an animatronic to kill her. That's really interesting to me. People have also pointed out that Abby, the way her name is spelled, if you rearrange the letters, it spells baby. Does that sound really stupid to you? Maybe. It's not the craziest way that we've found out lore, though, from Five Nights at Freddy's. It's always been really stupid and confusing, and why. But hey, we don't have to put in a phone number into tiles. So, I'm willing to take Abby equals baby. I'm willing to take that. And then we have Mike to be analogous to Michael Afton, but it's Michael Schmidt. That one's such an easy thing. He's obviously supposed to resemble Michael Afton, even down to feeling guilty for his brother's death / kidnapping, because he, did something. Instead of it being a prank gone wrong, he wasn't paying attention to his brother enough, and watched as his brother was being kidnapped, and feeling that guilt and trying to fix it. Sounds similar? To a certain someone? He's the easiest one-to-one to just right off the bat. Even down to the point, and this is one of my criticisms, of like, we didn't know if he was Justice Schmidt or if he was Michael Afton, like literally. And so I don't think that he's gonna be an Afton, but I do think he is going to be analogous to Michael Afton, but this time if he was Henry's kid. And then we have Garrett. This is another funny theater bit when because I think he says he yells Garrett after him, and people are like, is that his name? Is it Crying Child's name? Like, he obviously Garrett is meant to be analogous to Crying Child, and instead of being bit, he gets kidnapped. But also this is another thing of why I believe that they're still supposed to replicate their original roles, I suppose, of like being Henry's kid, because instead of being bit as like an accident, he gets kidnapped and killed. And this is also a point where people are like, why would William Afton go like states out and kidnap him in broad daylight just to kill him? Is this what he was doing with all the other kids, where he just like kidnapping them from random places, taking back the Freddy's and then killing them there? I don't think so. I think that this is very much a reference to William originally in the games killing Charlie and her possessing the puppet, because it was very much like he specifically killed Charlie to get at Henry. So it makes sense if he specifically killed Garrett to get at Henry. And also, like, apparently, I haven't seen him. I hadn't seen the puppet at any point in the movie, but apparently the puppet was seen in a couple scenes, and it would make a lot of sense. And we never know what happened to Garrett. We know he's dead. I think that was confirmed. Yeah, that was confirmed, because William straight up says, I killed your brother, now I can kill you too. 2 for 1. And I hear you have a younger sister. So he is dead. But we never see what happens to Garrett. We never see him as a ghost. I thought what was going to happen was going to be, oh, he's in Golden Freddy, he's a second spirit. I don't think they weren't going for that. And also, I think that Golden Freddy only having one eye that was a light with the blue light is kind of proof that there's only one spirit in there. It's only Cassidy in there, because remember from Five Nights at Freddy's 3 when they had lights in their eyes and Golden Freddy had two. Golden Freddy only has one, so I believe that is. This is me kind of throwing stuff at a wall and just kind of like maybe confirmation bias a little bit, but I feel like it adds to my case. And then on top of that, we don't see it, and we hear like there's slight references to the puppet, like just in the background and whatnot. So it'd make a lot of sense if Garrett was possessing the puppet. So like that's I fully believe that it is a story about the Afton family and the Schmidt family with Henry instead of the Emily family. And it's just within this these movies, as more are going to come out, that it's just that their roles are sort of reversed. Not the Henry and William, but more of the kids, where they still are mirroring their original canon, but different enough. And I think that's an interesting way to take it, and I think it's giving us some pretty good new takes on these characters and more characterizations of like what they're like. So that's really cool. I'm really excited for that. I think that's my main theory, and it's mainly just one big one. I don't have anything else super crazy theory-wise coming out from that movie. This is just one that I really feel strongly about. And then next up is, what would I do if I had this movie, or what would I would change? Because there are a couple of things. I'm not huge, but just I figured I might add on to it because I did feel a bit strongly about it in some cases. But yeah, this next section. So first off, this is gonna be the easiest one. I mean, all of them are pretty easy things to change. I think there's only like 4 of them. No, 3 of them. 3 things that I would really change. First off, that saw trap thing. I'm not a fan of it. I really am not. It's cool to look at. It's cool on its own. It makes no goddamn sense. I feel like you could literally just cut out the bits of like have it so that when the security guard gets like knocked out, stop it right there. And it's like kind of implied he's dead. He's probably dead, and it wouldn't change anything. And then when Michael gets like, I don't know, attacked or whatever, have it like he's getting attacked in his dreams and you can see the animatronics, and then he wakes up and Vanessa's there. That would also add to like, hey, something's up with this lady. What's going on? But that's not what I want to do, because I feel like you shouldn't have to change in its entirety to fix it. There'd only be one thing that I would do. Go back to the canon. Have them be stuffed in animatronics, because several characters are stuffed in the animatronics. That is something that happens. And like have it so that when the security guard, he's in like the animatronic suit and he's struggling, you can see the animatronics around him, and they're slowly lowering the animatronic head onto him, and maybe there's a cut from underneath looking up, and you can see all the little cross beams and wires and metal bits that would make it very obvious that it's not gonna be good. He's not gonna survive this. And you can cut to his face, and he's obviously taking in the fact that he's not going to survive this, and he's screaming and like struggling to get out and pleading for help. And then a third, like as the thing starts lowering, you cut out to animatronics a little bit, and it finally, you hear some crunch, some sounds, some grimy little sounds, and the head is finally lowered, and his body, the animatronic stops moving. It goes limp. You wouldn't have to add any blood, and it would actually be more, I feel like it would be more intense than this weird fucking saw trap, because, you're getting what it's like to be alive when you're being stuffed into these things. And, it wouldn't change the rating, because that's one thing I'm saying. I don't think you need to change the PG-13 rating to be a good movie. because it wouldn't need to have any blood. It cutting around of just the implications of like there's a bunch of shit in there that your head would not fit into. The guy noticed that his head would not fit into it without him being severely like dead, and then cut back and you see it's like finally placed and you're not seeing anything, but you know what's happening and you can see his body go limp, right? That's feels way more intense to me, and you'd also get more of that intensity than it just cutting away of like him staring at the soft thing. And so there's one moment of like, I don't know how it would fit in with Michael and how you'd escape, because that was one thing that they did, and I did appreciate that continuity of the first security guard like loosening the pin, and then when Mike's put in, he uses that loosened pin to escape. I don't know how that would work with getting stuffed in the animatronic suit, but this is just me doing it like throwing stuff at a wall. You could make it work of him getting out, escaping them, or something. And I don't know. That's one bit that I'm not sure of how they would deal with his scene, but that first scene especially, I don't like that saw trap thing. It's cool if it were in any other series. Like, and this is also like, I know that it sounds like, when I'm talking like, oh, it should be PG-13, blah, 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 the saw trap is kind of weird. It might sound a little bit like, oh, I don't like horror, or I'm like scared of it, or like I didn't want it to be scary. I love horror movies. Huge fan of them. I watched Saw growing up as a kid. I loved Nightmare on Elm Street. I watched several of the Halloween movies. I love horror movies so much. It's my passion. I love horror movies. But it wasn't the right tone for this movie. Not like it being horror, but that Saw machine, wasn't the right tone, I feel. It wasn't a good fit, and it didn't make sense. So that's something that I would change. The second thing I would change, and this is maybe would lean a little bit further into the goofiness, maybe, but it would be more understandable. So Aunt Jane, I talked about this. Aunt Jane, her body is in the living room. There's nothing. What? So something I would change is maybe she's outside of. I keep on saying Cassidy. She's outside of Abby's door, right? And trying to get her to do whatever. And she turns around, quick turn, and Golden Freddy's right behind her. She screams. Golden Freddy like whacks her in the head, and she gets knocked out. But like right before it starts to like before it begins to kill her, Abby opens the door and she's like, "What's going on?" Like, and then Susan's like, "I don't know. Like, don't hurt her. Don't hurt her. Like, she's an awful person. I hate her, but like, she's not a bad person. She's not like a she did not eat. Like, she doesn't deserve to be hurt, or something like that." Reasoning with it and just being like, don't hurt her. Like, or something like that. And you could still have it where she's like happily going away with them because she still doesn't like Aunt Jane, but she's just like, she's, or like, I don't know, you don't even have to have it be like that. She's like, "Oh my god, what happened?" And Golden Freddy, like Cassidy being like, "Oh, well, she's she's sleeping. I just walked up on her. She's asleep. She fainted," or like something like that. Like she was scared of me and she fainted, and Abby being like, "Oh, well, you like why are you here?" And it's like, "Oh, you should come play with us over at Freddy's," and you could still have the same scene, right? And then when they come back, you could have something about she wakes up and she starts yelling at Mike and being like, "Oh my god, that stupid animatronic from like the place you're working at, you sent it here, didn't you?" And him being like, "What are you talking about?" Like gaslighting her, being like, "What are you talking about? An animatronic broke in here? Are you crazy? What was it?" It's like, "It was this broken golden one." It's like, "There's not a golden. Are you talking about like Freddy? There's not like a golden Freddy. What are you talking about?" And you could even have it down to like, she's, I don't know what she was, like the social worker, I think, like talking to social worker and being like, "Michael sent an animatronic to attack me. He's crazy. He's unhinged. Come on, Doug. Doug. That was the name of the lawyer, right? And like, tell her he's insane. He tried to kill me. I had to fight off it," or like something like, "He sent an animatronic there to attack me," and Doug being like, because God, I love that guy. He's so stupid. He's so silly. But like, and Mike being like, "I don't know. I think she's saying things. She seems, maybe she was self-projecting when, like, talking about how, like, my sister is insane. Like, I don't know. She doesn't seem like she's fit to take care of a kid. That would be a very funny kind of end to it, of, like, it wouldn't leave this huge gaping question of what did they do about Jane's body in the living room? And it would have that kind of silly Five Nights at Freddy's like kind of thing of like, it's just a goofy fun scene. And it also would have the vindictiveness of like, she's kind of like a villain the entire movie. And it's like, yeah, sure, she dies at the end, and like I guess that's like her end. But also like it would have felt like way more satisfying to have her be like completely shut down and not allowed to like just be like, sorry, yeah, like you're mentally unfit, you're mentally unwell, you can't, take care of Abby. Like that would have been really funny and ironic. And then my last one, less of like a specific scene that I would do or change, more of just an overall thing that I would add a little bit more context to. Sorry, that cut out real quick. One of the scenes that I would add a little bit of context to would be the drawings. And the drawings have an influence on the animatronics, from what I've gathered. I mean, obviously the most blatant one was when she, like, a reference to the Silver Eyes trilogy, she draws the kids being killed by Springtrap, or Spring Bonnie, or whatever, William Afton. And they're like, oh, okay, bad guy. Let's attack him now. Bad guy, right? But there is one bit where that kind of kind of sets it up as a thing, but it's not. I had to kind of figure it out and think about it a little bit after. But when she's like, they do have a focus on her drawings of like, well, she's drawing her friends, she's drawing her brother, and they even point out like she draws Mike pretty often and like in very positive ways, and that maybe being the reason is going to go back to like theories as well. Like that's the reason why they don't attack him immediately, is because, well, he's an adult, but also all the drawings that she's done of him, he's a good guy. He's someone that they can be okay with. He's not dangerous because he's nice to her. She likes him, so they trust him. Sorta. Very huge caveat on that. They don't really trust him, but they're like, you're allowed here. Fine. Abby would be too upset if we killed you. Whatever. That's the vibe I got. And then when it is interesting because when she starts, like, she gets really mad at him when Aunt Jane is there, so she runs into her room and crosses him off of everything, obviously with the like implication of like she doesn't like him anymore. And so if the animatronics are influenced by the drawings, it makes sense that in the next scene with him, the animatronics try and kill him. It wasn't really paralleled very great, and it was more of just, it seemed more like it was two things happening at the same time to kind of like parallel each other instead of it being cause and effect, because that was the point of when they did become aggressive to him, like excessively so. And when and it would also make sense of if Cassidy, because Cassidy's the one that brings up like, hey, you want to give us Abby? Because it could make sense of, it's going back to theorizing, of like if Cassidy feels like, obviously Abby doesn't like him anymore, like, in a very kid kind of mindset of like, Abby's crossing him off of everything, he's a bad guy, we don't like him anymore because Abby doesn't like him anymore. She would be way happier with us because she doesn't have anyone to tie her down anymore. Her one person that she likes, she doesn't like anymore, so she could be with us now. Hey, Mike, you want to trade? And then he kind of like, in that moment, it was like a test of like, he proves them right by saying, yeah, sure, I'll you guys can have Abby. I want my dead, I want Garrett back. I want my mom and dad back. Giving up Abby. So that kind of proves them right. And, I do understand that was probably what was being hinted at, and I fully believe that was what's going on, was her drawings influenced how they reacted to him, and then he kind of doubled down on it accidentally, and, that's why they became aggressive to him suddenly, and weren't aggressive to him initially. But, I think that throughout the movie, they should have peppered in at least a little bit more importance onto the influence of these drawings. That way, by the time that the final scene happens, it's not more. It's less of like, oh, it's a reference to the Silver Eyes. It's more of a, oh, like they're influenced by these drawings. This one drawing that they keep on showing of like Spring Bonnie holding all the kids' hands probably has an influence over them as well. So if we change, it makes logical sense instead of like, it's happening. Okay. All right, that's what I would think. But yeah, like that's pretty much everything. And on the next section, just wrapping up. So overall, I really enjoyed the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Some people didn't. Some people are dumb. Sorry, some people are. But it was a great experience. I have my own nitpicks as someone who's really into Five Nights at Freddy's, and also as someone who's just kind of really into, I don't know, media in general, of really liking parallels and cause and effect, and kind of noticing some places where the movie could have done a little better. But overall, it was a great experience. It was a great product. A good question that I keep on hearing over and over was it worth the 8-year wait? So a lot of people say, no, I feel like this isn't, like blah, blah, blah. And that's fair. I understand that. But also, I think, yes. I think it worked wonderfully, and I did not mind waiting 8 years for this. Because, like, I'll be honest, I don't think Warner Bros. Would have handled it great. Have you seen, what was it? They were in charge of the Banana Splits movie. Did not like that. I did not. Some people are saying that the Banana Splits movie is better than the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. No, it is not. I think you're just saying that to be contrarian and a little shit. It's not better than that movie. You're weird. That movie sucked. Like, so consistently sucked. It's funny. It's great to watch of just like a fun little thing. It's not better quality. It really is not better quality. It's not better plot. It had a lot, I think a lot of people are saying that because it had more gore. A lot more of, I don't remember if it was rated R or not, but I think it was rated mature or something. But like, it was a lot more mature and gory, and it was like, oh, we can watch these guys, the viscera and the blood and all of that. But that's not Strawberry. Like, that's such a cheesy little movie. It's so bad it's good, and it's not more than that. Like, I don't think Warner Bros. Would have handled it, so I'm glad that even if we did lose a couple, some time to going through, like, figuring out production and the plots and whatnot, I'm glad that we didn't have that. I'm glad that we didn't go with the other plots that Scott was talking about on Reddit. They sound really fun. I don't think anyone would have really loved it. Some of the plots that were there seemed interesting. A lot of them were just kind of, I don't think anyone would have really been satisfied or like had something to really bite into, like the movie has, at least for me. And you know what? Like, I can think to myself, like, it would have been really cool if A24 had it. Like, Blumhouse, awesome. I'm really glad that they have it. But also, if A24 had Five Nights at Freddy's, you know how fucking awesome that would have been? I'm just saying. But anyways, I don't mind the 8-year wait. I have better things to do with my time. And I was happy to just kind of enjoy the stuff because they were still pulling out games and stuff. We still had Five Nights at Freddy's things, so it wasn't like it was a dry desert for 8 years and slowly being hyped up more and more of like this great thing, and it's like this. It was something they're like, we're working on it. There wasn't a lot of talk about it. For some points, it seemed like it was canceled. Some points, it wasn't. I don't mind the wait. And it wasn't like that the movie was in production for 8 years, because I think that it gets mixed up. It was in production for like 1 or 2 years. The movie that we watched, it was a 1 or 2 year product. I think it was closer to 1. So it's not like, 8 years of filming and writing went into this. It was just a lot of production hell. And so I wouldn't say like it's an 8-year filming, writing, casting thing. So, if that was the case, then I would say that this is not the greatest product for 8 years of purely just working on the film. But that's not how it is. It's a 1 year kind of film process, all of that technical stuff, and we got a good product for that. I didn't mind waiting that long. I had other things to enjoy, watch. If I wanted something more mature and grittier, I could watch Hannibal. I can't show you, but I got a poster right up there. We got some great movie releases in between then. We got some great horror games between then. Great fan games, great actual games, the Ruin DLC, the books. I don't really like reading them, but that was also coming out. So, I'm overall really happy with what we got. I'm not upset or anything. Overall, I like the movie, and I think everyone else should give it a chance as well. And just stop listening to the critics on Rotten Tomatoes. They are fucking wild. They're insane. There are very few times in which I full-heartedly believe and agree with what the critics on Rotten Tomatoes are saying. So many times they're just off the mark. I've watched so many things that the critics loved, and I watched it and I'm just like, this is odd. This is awful. I saw one of the reviews being like, oh, well, why would you want to watch this when you can have Wally's Wonderland? Okay, I love Wally's Wonderland. I genuinely love that. It's not even like it's so bad it's good. It is that, but it's not even just that. It's just such a beautiful movie to me. It's such a fun one. It's like up there with like Queen of the Damned, of like, maybe it's not a good quality movie, but you know what? I'm gonna have so much fucking fun watching this. Who knew that they needed Nicolas Cage bodied animatronics and like ripping out their like internal guts and oil spilling all over them? I do like the fact that they had like machine oil, or like, I don't know what they were using. It was like, I don't know, bending ink machine. It was like ink, but like oil is like blood, and their like robotic parts is guts. It was insane. It was awesome. I loved it, but it's not better. It's not better than Five Nights at Freddy's movie. If you liked it, that's your jam, more sure, but don't go around acting like it's a cinema gold. It's not. That's fun though. That's also one thing. Watch the Wally's Wonderland movie. It is great. Don't watch Banana Splits. It's very meh. It's very mediocre. It's not even quite. It's so bad it's good for me. It's just kind of all the way through. It doesn't fully lean into the camp. It kind of tries to take itself very seriously sometimes, and sometimes takes it's like, oh yeah, well, we're just animatronics killing people. Isn't that so goofy? But it's a weird kind of purgatory place for me. There's some great like one-liners. This isn't strawberry. Sorry, this is the second time I did it. It's so annoying. But like, it's, just watch Wally's Wonderland. It is such a fun one. It is fully leaning into the camp. Watch it. But yeah, that's my opinions on Five Nights at Freddy's movie. And I don't know how long the runtime is for this right now. Hopefully not more than an hour. That would be a bad one for me to start out on, especially because I know my quality is really bad right now. This is my first face video, first voice video. I've never done anything like this before. And I'm using literally my phone camera and a $5 earbud mic. It's not going to be good quality. And also, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it was even picked up, my roommate was behind me, he was in the bathroom and walking through and stuff, so the sound quality is not going to be great. And I'm sure you can hear every time I exhale because I can feel it on my fingers. I don't know. So, I don't know. Hopefully, this will do well. I don't know. People, if this only has 12 views, I hope that the people that see it like it. If it has more views, maybe I can continue talking about Five Nights at Freddy's, or just movies in general. I have so many opinions on them. And maybe come back and if I have better quality and more time, come back to this and do a redo, I suppose. But yeah, have a good day. Thank you for watching, and hopefully this will come out before 2 weeks from now, because I'm doing this on Halloween Day. You can't tell from the body paint. But yeah, see ya!